welcome everybody to this webinar for designing human experiences, which is gonna be like a dialogue on how enrich human life through design. And hold on one second. So welcome, bienvenidos en Mabuhay. This is Tagalog and Spanish and English because we are speaking three languages today. And we welcome to your posts or your questions and comments on the chat. And you can also share what you are learning today using the hashtag that you are seeing right now in the slide. And you can like also search for us like at lowercase innovation and at Pistachios de Molina Rosewater Studio. So with that said, I'm going to start. So hello everyone, my name is Gloriana Amador and I am from Costa Rica, and I've completed a master program in museums and digital culture at Pratt Institute in New York, and as a Fulbright scholar. So it is in the spirit of James William Fulbright that I've always found inspiring, like how we can promote mutual understanding in a more peaceful world through the exchange of ideas and visions of the world. And it is in my professional career in museums that I consider that like the input from the visitors is the way to move forward when we want to be innovative in museum practices. And this idea inspired me to create this studio, the one that you're looking right now, to create museum and art experiences that are more accessible, equitable, and meaningful. And for instance, questions such as what do museums mean for people, or what does designing human experiences for museums mean today, matter to me a lot in my role as a creative and designer. And I will be presenting one of my key projects that I made in New York that shaped my understanding of my professional identity and thus a philosophy that will inspire my career forward. So, first of all, why museums matter? According to the UNESCO report on freedom and creativity, and I'm going to quote, artistic freedom also includes the right of citizens to participate in cultural life. This is a key component of the well-being of our societies. The current crisis highlights once again that the power of art and culture is important to build and maintain social ties under unprecedented constraints. Art and culture offer an endless source of generosity and resilience. So I'm ending the quote, and like a comment on this quote, I embrace this idea that imagination, freedom, and creativity offer like this kind of escape from our realities and enhance our understanding of the world, and that's why art is so important for these societies. In light of the ongoing museum definition discussion that has taken place within the International Council of Museums last year in Japan, it seems to be necessary to rethink how museums serve their communities and represent at its best the spirit of the time. I think that someone needs to mute themselves. So the museum experience has been changing rapidly due to the impact of technology and also to the impact of COVID. So people are interacting with art not just in the museum anymore, but they're using more their phones, computers, and tablets too. So this is kind of a hybrid museum experience. So however, during this pandemic, we have witnessed how museums were responding and adapting to this new normal. So, for instance, museums from home, activations of public spaces, and social media were some of the tactics that museums took so they would reach more to their audiences. And now the museum experience has changed. During and after COVID-19, and I'm going to quote some lines from the Arts newspaper, Museums need to face the fact that the pandemic closures have not simply been about their safety levels, but about society's attitudes about their indispensability. So I'm going to end the quote. And I personally and professionally influenced by the MIA's Center for Empathy and Visual Arts, I am embracing a more human-centered practice that places at the core how people feel. So the emotions are relevant when we want to design the new experiences that the visitors are going to have um, after COVID-19. So to give you a little bit of context about like how I'm using this word like humanism, this human approach, I'm gonna read some lines from the Humanist magazine where it says that humanism is a rational philosophy informed by science, inspired by art, and motivated by compassion, affirming that the dignity of each human being, it supports the maximization of individual liberty and opportunity consonant with social and planetary responsibility. It advocates the extension of participatory democracy and the expansion of the open society, standing for human rights and social justice. I end the quote. So, from a humanistic approach, we at the studios, the Molina Studio, we embrace this idea that the emotions, the freedom, and the autonomy are crucial components for designing human experiences in museums after COVID-19. So, a little bit about emotional design. Um, I believe that emotions can open up like these new bridges between people and collections and how people will interact for now on with the artworks in the museums. And this emotional design has like three levels according to Don Norman. And this is the level that it matters to me the most, like it is the reflective one. So I'm gonna quote here, the reflective experience is more concerned with the human ability to predict that the impact of a product on life after using it is important. At the reflective level of emotional design, users interpret and understand things, they reason about their world and reflect on themselves. At this level, designers will want to increase the user's aspiration to buy the product. But in this case, of museums, we want to enhance the experience of contemplating the art, interpreting the art, and just having a meaningful experience in the museums, not necessarily buying a product in the museum. So I end the quote. The human-centered design focuses more on the emotions of freedom and autonomy when the visitors come to the museums, when they are visiting the website, when they are interacting with our digital products. And we don't see more than like they like a user or a visitor, but a human being. So in this sense, the emotional states will be like compatible with the particular artwork or exhibition. And this is like the idea that I want to explore more in my design practice for museums. So in this case, I'm going to refer to Art Thread, which is a digital product that I worked when I was in New York. So in my digital product design class, I learned about the product design life cycle, which includes like identifying, investigating, and validating design problems. And all of these from a user-centered perspective. Well, in my case, a visitor-centered perspective, in which means that like the museum plays in like in the same level like the collections of art and also the people. So both are equally important in a museum. For instance, you know that museums take care a lot about their collections, but under this methodology, they also take care about their visitors. So by understanding what the visitors really want and need when they are visiting the museum itself makes like the experiences more enriching and meaningful. So for art thread, my major areas of research were, for instance, the motivations to visit a museum, the methods of obtaining information, and the information needs that the visitors need to enhance the visitor experience in a museum. So through a series of interviews and questionnaires that included questions such as, what does a satisfactory museum experience mean to you? What digital formats will you choose to learn or expand your knowledge about this artwork? Or maybe what information would you like to know about the artwork or artist before visiting the museum? I managed to have a one-to-one, deep and meaningful conversation with museum visitors. And for instance, they were sharing their thoughts and saying, like, for example, oh, the context sometimes it is quite random in my experience, but most of art I think becomes more interesting when you know more about the background. Or another participant said, oh, a lot of times I don't see or understand the voice of the artist and their intent through their piece. When this happens, I don't feel as connected to the art. And another participant said, like, oh, I don't like guided tours. I like going to a show and not knowing anything about the pieces first. And then I will do my research at home. And I think that sometimes knowing too much about the pieces takes away from the raw emotional response. And I will feel that if that's something that is not going to make like my whole experience like meaningful. So for instance, in that case, you know that there are a lot of opinions and different like necessities or needs that the visitors were like expressing. So in this case, for our thread, emotions, colors, and the uniquenesses of of their museum experience will be represented like visually with colors, color coding, with shapes, with a lot of art. So for instance, in this case, each person or we have like their own representation with icons or avatars. And for instance, each color represents like an emotion they are having right now with this artwork. And each line that is on the head is representing like their unique ideas or thoughts or way to experience the art pieces in the museum. So this is like basically the development of this digital product that is very centered on human emotions, their freedom and autonomy when they are visiting the museums. And the whole idea is that in the end, we hope that, for instance, the visitor said like, oh, my experience is open, free, and unguided. Like I am free to think about this artist the way I want, and that's okay. My ideas are different, and that's okay. And my emotions are valid in the museum is like listening to what I'm feeling, right? So this is our thread, like how each one of the humans that are coming to the museum, the people who are coming is like having their own uniqueness by the way they see art, the way they feel art according to their own emotions and freedom and autonomy. So to conclude, in the museum experience after COVID-19, we need to focus our practice in designing for museums not on a singular user, but on the value of a human being, their autonomy, freedom, and emotions when they are experiencing art in a museum. And I'm going to quote again from the Arts New paper. They are saying that relevance and authenticity may become more apt metrics of success than physical scale or audience size. And I end the quote. And for many museum professionals around the world right now, COVID-19 is an opportunity to discover a new kind of museum. And with that said, I'm gonna share, these are some of the references that I use for this presentation. And thank you so much for your attention.